All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, I apologize for any background noise. I'm actually in New York City and there's a lot of sirens and horns and everything outside, but hopefully that's not too distracting. But I just want to say welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am really excited to be here talking about Cockroach Cloud demo. And before we get started, I'm going to do a quick round of intros. So my name is Megan. I am on the product marketing team at Cockroach Labs. If you guys have been to any of the previous office hours sessions, you might have met my boss, Jim, who's on the product marketing team as well. So we try to run a tight ship over here. And I am joined today by two very special guests. So we have Emily and Ian, and I'm going to let them say a few words to introduce themselves. So if Emily, if you want to come on video and just introduce yourself, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Emily, like Megan mentioned, and I am a product manager for Cockroach Cloud and specifically focused on the sort of Cockroach Cloud onboarding experience and cluster lifecycle.
Nice. And yeah, thanks for joining us. We're excited to have you. And then we also have Ian here as well.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ian. I'm on the documentation team at Cockroach Labs and mostly work on developer docs.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, and then we'll also have we have a Tim on the line as well, and he'll just be answering questions in the background as they come up. So that kind of leads me to the next point, which is that we really want you to ask your questions. If anything comes up at all, you can put them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be on top of them. And yeah, if anything comes up, just please do answer them. So I think with that, we're going to get started. So I'm actually going to give a very quick introduction, and then I'll pass it off to Emily and Ian to go through the demo and get started there. So, all right. So I actually just wanted to give a really quick introduction to CockroachDB. Now, I'm assuming that if you're on this session, you're pretty familiar with CockroachDB, but just in case there's any people out there who are less familiar, just a really quick overview. So a good way to think about CockroachDB is as an evolution of a relational database. So we actually have a really good webinar that I would recommend everyone check out that is called Distributed SQL, a Modern Cloud Native Postgres. So I think that's also a pretty good way to think about CockroachDB is sort of this more modern 21st century Postgres. So it combines a lot of the great things about Postgres, like standard SQL and transactions, with a more, much more easy scale, always on resilience. And if you want to go there, the ability to kind of like tie data to location to improve your fault tolerance. So kind of in sum, you've probably seen this if you've been on our website. We let you scale fast, survive anything, thrive everywhere. And these are really the core pillars that we're trying to help you accomplish with your applications. So hopefully that was a quick, good introduction to CockroachDB. And as I mentioned, definitely recommend checking out this webinar. I can send you guys the link to the webinar after in the follow-up email if you want to kind of learn more about CockroachDB in general. And then the other thing I just wanted to introduce is Cockroach Cloud. So this is what we're all here for today. Cockroach Cloud is our managed service. It is the easiest way to learn and use CockroachDB. So you just get a distributed database in just a few minutes. You just go onto the console, select your options, and then it's there for you. And this is just it just makes it tremendously easy to run a distributed database. And not only that, but we are going to manage and maintain everything about your cluster. So that takes a lot of the load off your shoulders. And there's a lot of capabilities that you can do straight from the console. And then the last thing I just wanted to point out is that we do offer unlimited support. And I think that this is something that definitely distinguishes us from unnamed large cloud providers or other companies where you might be used to using their services where it's kind of hard to talk to a human being. So we're here, and Emily can tell you, the SRE team is fantastic, and we're here to answer all your questions and to give you the support you need. So we do have two plans right now, and we'll get into that more later about the free plan. But that was my little spiel about introducing CockroachDB and CockroachCloud. And I'll just pass it off now, I guess, to Emily, since I know she has some words that she wants to say before we go into the demo. So I think I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and just let Emily give a quick intro. Cool. Emily, you want to take it?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Megan. And I am super excited for this webinar today. Essentially, what we're going to do is walk you through the process from creating your cluster on CockroachCloud all the way through to connecting and actually running a query with an application. So I'm personally excited for this one because I'm like a lazy person and I would always rather watch a video kind of walking me through every step I need to take whenever I'm getting started with a new tool. I think generally getting started with any kind of new software can be a bit daunting, even if you're familiar with like CockroachDB. You know, CockroachCloud is kind of this new layer of management that maybe you're not familiar with. So I'm pretty excited for us to kind of just walk through all of those steps. And yeah, this recording will be available on YouTube, and we'll even have kind of clips from it available on YouTube as well. So you'll be able to follow along for the parts that are most relevant to you. And today, Ian and I are going to walk through two different processes. So one is going to be getting started on CockroachCloud generally. So that is our fully dedicated instance of CockroachDB, and that is a paid plan. And then we also have another second walkthrough we'll do of CockroachCloud free. So this is our free beta of CockroachCloud. So free forever tier. We're really excited to have this out in the world and hopefully get to hear from you guys a little bit about your experience with the free beta if you've had any, and get you started on that as well. So that's all I had to start. Ian, if you want to take it away.
Sure. So what I'm going to show you all is kind of getting a CockroachCloud cluster up and running. And I'm going to use two different terms here: dedicated and free tier. When I say dedicated, I'm going to be talking about like what Emily was mentioning, the first case, a CockroachCloud cluster that's running on a dedicated set of machines that are specific to your account. And we'll talk about the free tier a little bit later on. So let me share my screen and we can kind of get started with this. So I'm not going to go through, since it's not very interesting, on how to actually register. But before you'll be able to do anything, you want to register with CockroachCloud, create an account on there, and then you can begin creating a cluster. I've already logged in. You can see that I'm part of an organization that has a bunch of running clusters, but the process is going to be really similar for you all. So after you've logged in, you've created your account, you're going to click the Create Cluster button, and here's where you get to choose what type of cluster you're going to be provisioning. So we're going to do a CockroachCloud, which is what I'm going to call dedicated. Again, this is a dedicated cluster. It's running on specific machines that are specific to your account, not shared with anyone else. You can choose your cloud provider and your region within that, and the number of nodes. So, choosing what kind of hardware you need, how many nodes in your cluster, that can be kind of a complicated subject, and there isn't a lot of like specific information I can give you, apart from it's one of the nice things about a cloud database is that it can scale up as your needs scale up. So you can start off with a smaller cluster, a smaller number of nodes, smaller hardware specs, see how the performance is for your particular workload, and if you need to add more, you can add more. It's one of the nice things about it. So so you choose, say, a 3-node cluster, and it'll give you the the cluster name. It generates a unique name. You can set that to something something specific if you'd like. And it'll give you an estimated.
Ian,
yeah.
Just before I move on, I think the cluster kind of selection experience is something that like people can tend to struggle with. I think one other thing to keep in mind is resilience, which Megan mentioned earlier is one of the benefits you get with CockroachDB. If you are looking to have a very resilient cluster, it's good to get at least 3 nodes so that you can have high availability. So if any one node goes down at any time, you still have availability for the cluster and you can still connect and have that data be accessible to your users.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and there's a lot of information in our docs and on the Cockroach Labs website about sort of making selections on based on your workload, and figuring out the replication factor for the size of your cluster. So there's a lot of resources out there to sort of help you get started with that if you're thinking about provisioning a fairly large cluster, especially that gets that the number of nodes and the replication factor ends up being an important part of your deployment.
We have great docs, thanks to Ian.
Not just me. There's a lot of really talented writers here. So I'm actually not going to provision this, since, like I said, this is a dedicated cluster, which means actually going in and provisioning the server instances on the cloud provider. That can take a little bit of time. It's a little bit boring for you all. So, but if I was doing this, I would click create cluster after entering in my payment information and things like that.
And one other quick note here is that if you are signing up for the first time, we actually give you 30 days for free on your first cluster. So you'll see like a trial code already entered for you in that space there. So all you have to do is add your credit card and you'll get the first 30 days of that cluster for free.
So I've got some clusters already provisioned here. I've got one called Zigzag More. It's a small cluster, which is all we really need for the demo. I'm going to show how to connect using one of our Hello World examples. This one's going to be in Python. After you've got your dedicated cluster provisioned, you're going to want to create some database users that will connect to it. If I click the SQL users pane on the left, I can then add a user, and this is a database user. It's not a different account. It's just a database user within your account. I'm going to create a Max Roach user. I'm going to set the password to just a simple demo one, password, and save that. And so now I've got a SQL user named Max Roach. The next thing I'm going to do is allow me to connect to this this cluster. So if you're connecting your database to an application server or something like that, you're going to want to allow connections from that particular network. Here, I'm connecting from home, and I'm allowing clients and the DB console to connect from this network. I'm going to wait for that configuration to come up, and then I'll be able to connect to it.
One other option here too is you'll notice there's a tab at the top of that networking page to add VPC peering. Also private link if you're using AWS. So that's another way that you can set up a secure connection to your cluster.
So now I'm wanting to connect using the Max Roach user that I had set up. I'm going to be connecting to the default database, which is the database you'll connect to when you first create your CockroachDB cluster. If I click next, I'm going to get prompted to download a CA certificate. So this is how you actually connect using a client. You're going to need to use a certificate to verify that connection using SSL. So I'm going to download that. If you don't have Cockroach, the CockroachDB binaries on your system, you can download the clients, and you can see that it gives you a command here that you can use to open up a SQL console on your local machine. So I'm going to copy that so I can go into a terminal and then connect to my cluster. So the only thing you have to really set in here is the path to that certificate that I just downloaded. So I'm putting it in my downloads directory just for convenience. You know, if you're working on an application, you probably want to move it to a different location. But now I'm going to get prompted for that password for Max Roach. And now I'm connected to that cluster. So for the Hello World Python example, all of our Hello World examples kind of use a similar kind of app. It's a simple banking app where you have accounts, like a bank account. It has a certain amount, and you can transfer money between different accounts. Very straightforward example. So to do that, we're going to create a bank database. And we are going to, that's where all the tables are going to be created within our actual application. So I'm going to go back to I'm going to show you sort of the code in the Python example. So you can see in the code here, we've got some SQL create statements for creating tables. Since we're going to be connecting to we're going to do this all in the bank database. We're going to create a table, insert some account data, select the balances, and transfer some money between them.
So Ian, for this code, you can just grab this straight from the docs, right?
Yeah, it's in the docs under the sample Hello World apps. The actual code is in a GitHub repository. Pretty much all of our Hello World examples are in all the different languages have their code up on GitHub. And some of them actually have we're modifying them so that there's going to be a CockroachCloud branch for all the examples that have some of these settings already taken care of for you. You just need to plug in your particulars. This one is pretty simple because it's this Python example is pretty simple because it just takes the connection string, which I'm going to show in a little bit, to actually run it. So So the back in the console here, you can actually see the connection parameters. It's going to show you the host for the cluster, the port, username, everything that's you're going to need to actually connect is in the sort of connection info dialog box that comes up. So if you were using, when you're using a connection string within an application, you can just copy and paste, again, modifying the location of your CA certificate. So we're actually going to use this connection string since it's already basically created for us for this Python example. The Python app basically takes as a parameter the connection string. Because I had a typo in my path to the.
Too easy to have those typos.
Exactly.
Got to make that easier.
Yep.
Just for the sake of live demos, at least.
Okay. Why is that? Oh, yes. So since I set a password for this, I'm going to add the password to the connection string and connect. Okay, so that worked. So we have the output here just shows that there's two accounts created in that bank database. The first account had $1,000, second one had 250. We transferred $100 from account number 1 to account number 2, and then it transferred it. So here in the actual bank database, when the code runs, it actually ends up updating the account balance, transferring it around, and then disconnecting. So that's I'm not totally sure why it was giving an error on the after the balance. I'll have to look into that.
Actually, Ian, I think it's because you're connecting to the default DB, which we can show how you could change the string in the UI as well. You can also change it directly here, but
good catch.
Yeah, one nice thing is in the UI, if you kind of go back to that initial setup step, is you can change which database you want the string to generate for. So if you already have your bank database created, you could just go back a step, change that, and then this string would have that database already listed in it.
Yeah, so I ran it again, correcting the database name, and now if I go back to the console, you can see that there's a accounts table in the bank database. And right now there's no accounts since the application cleaned it up, but that table was created in the bank database. So so that's the Python example. you can see that there's a couple things that that you need to make sure when you're connecting to your actual cluster is to make sure you're connecting, like Emily pointed out, to the correct database. And this actually becomes more important when you use the free tier, since that's we have a way of distinguishing your particular cluster, since it's a multi-tenant. You're in a multi-tenant environment. So one of the nice things about the free tier is that it'll actually provision your cluster much faster, since it's already running on already provisioned servers. It's a multi-tenant situation. But the connection string is slightly different from free tier, which I don't know. Emily, did you want to talk a little bit about free tier before I go into the Java example? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think kind of as a recap to the Cockroach Cloud, dedicated instance, as we've mentioned, what you're getting with this, in addition to if you have 3+ nodes, your high availability cluster, S3 support, as Megan also mentioned, and unlimited support tickets, is you're getting the enterprise version of CockroachDB. So any features that, if you're familiar using the core version that you don't have access to there, you will be able to use on Cockroach Cloud. So that's kind of all like nicely packaged into one sort of offering for you. And that's one of, I think, the advantages of using cloud, is you kind of get all of that, but a little bit easier to get started and set up than having to download a trial license from our website and get your own servers and all that stuff. So as Ian showed, it's pretty easy once you got the the right parameters to connect. And so it's just a question of maybe setting that up ahead of time. I always like to copy the string and like edit it in a text editor instead of in the terminal myself, because it's just very easy to miss a comma or whatever and have to go back and edit it. So yeah, so then kind of moving on to the free tier, if you want to go back maybe to the create cluster page. Yeah, we can just go back. So if Ian goes through and creates a cluster, you can see the kind of default selection right now is the Cockroach Cloud free beta. So this is in beta because we have pretty limited functionality available right now. And then as Ian mentioned, it's a multi-tenant architecture. So you're kind of getting a slice of a dedicated Cockroach Cloud cluster. And what this means in terms of actually using Cockroach Cloud is that you don't have to worry about a lot of the configuration that we just went through with the dedicated instance of Cockroach Cloud. So you'll see here, the only selections you actually have are just to pick which cloud provider you want, the name of your cluster, and the plan. So that's really much, much simpler. You don't have to worry about anything like nodes in particular. So actually all Cockroach Cloud free clusters are by default highly available. They run on 3 nodes. And so this gives you a bit more kind of leverage to kind of access those parts of the Cockroach Cloud offering without necessarily having to think too much about what size do I need, what hardware do I need. All of those decisions are sort of pushed up front. And as it mentions on the cards here, you're kind of getting a limited slice of that bigger cluster. So you get 5 GB of storage and up to 1 vCPU of vCPUs. So this can be really great for, I think, like hobby projects. We've seen a lot of people at hackathons using this free tier already in beta. And it can be also useful for some like very basic kind of initial testing, just kind of getting started with Cockroach Cloud and seeing what we have.
Yeah, Emily, that was a great overview. I just wanted to jump in and say, just kind of going off what Emily said, as she mentioned, it is in beta right now. There are features that it doesn't have, like backup and restore, or like ability to bulk import, but that stuff is coming soon. So it's a really good, easy place to just get started. But if you do want the full functionality of Cockroach Cloud, then definitely try out the free trial. So
yeah, well said, Megan. Yeah, we're really excited to have all these new things coming down the pipeline. So get excited.
Okay, so yeah, so the process of creating that cluster is actually very, it's even simpler, like Emily mentioned, and within couple seconds here, we should have a new cluster set up. So, so you get a connection info dialog very similar to what you saw with the dedicated cluster. Again, we're going to be downloading a CA certificate to use with this. One thing I like to do is rename the actual certificate so that so we know exactly what cluster I'm connecting to. I'm going to go do that right now.
The other neat thing you'll see when you get into this connection box is that we're kind of already on step 2 of the same process that we saw earlier. So one of the things that we are able to do on the free tier is actually create a default user, SQL user for you to connect with just from the start. So you don't have to do some of the pre-configuration that you had to do in the dedicated instance in this case.
Yep, exactly. So, I'm going to copy the connection string for connecting using the SQL console. I'm going to make sure this is pointing at my certificate directory.
One other thing to note here is that since we're using the default user, there's a default password. You can always change that password from the same menu that we added the SQL user last time. But if you want to just save that password, it is a nice, strong, random password. You can actually, if you want to show Ian in the UI, you can hover over that reveal password button.
Mm-hmm.
And that will show it. And you can actually copy that as well and save that somewhere secure.
Great. So yeah, in fact, I'll maybe just do that right now.
Oh man, copy the whole thing.
Yep. Just so you got it. So anyway, so let's connect to the free tier cluster. So just like the dedicated cluster, you get connected to default DB by default. And I'm going to create a new database bank for the next demo, which is going to be a Java application that uses Hibernate. So it'll be a little bit different. So in Hibernate, there's a couple different ways you can configure your connection to the database. In Hibernate, we are using an XML configuration file, and we actually do have a dialect in Hibernate to handle our particular syntax for SQL. And there's a connection URL here that is similar to, but it's not exactly the same as the connection string you get in the connect dialog. So my recommendation is if you're trying to configure something using Hibernate, you can go to the connection parameters and kind of copy the parameters that you need into your connection string. So here, the connection URL, we're not going to be connecting to localhost. We need to go to the host for our free tier cluster. And then the database name, like we had mentioned before, since it is a multi-tenant, it's a multi-tenant installation, we need to be able to distinguish your your instance from any of the other instances that are running on that particular cluster. So we prepend the cluster name to the database name with followed by a dot. There's another way you could do it by adding an options cluster name to the string. There's two different ways you can do it, but in this case, we're going to use the cluster name prepended. So that's going to be able cattle 1220. And we're connecting to the bank database. The other thing is I'm going to set the SSL mode to verify full, since we're verifying against the CA certificate. And
what would happen, Ian, if you left it as require? How would that change the connection?
It will still connect. It just won't verify the identity based on the certificate. So in general, we recommend using verify full for connecting to CockroachDB instances, whether they're in CockroachCloud or standalone over a network. If you're just doing something locally, then using verify probably isn't a big deal, but just for security, you might be putting yourself at risk for what they call a man-in-the-middle attack if you don't verify that. So just a little thing that we like to do. In the docs, we actually show the connection string that you want to use, which has the path where you set the path to the certificate. So here, just like before, assuming I can type this correctly, and we're CCCA able Apple. And then going back to my dialog here, my username, my password, I'm going to copy that. And set the username. So I've saved that Hibernate config, and then I can compile and run this application. That's unfortunate.
Wouldn't really be a live demo if things didn't go wrong.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things here with the free tier is like once you have that certificate, you can configure it, and you don't necessarily need to use the cert. Like Ian was mentioning, you could do the SSL mode equals require for a slightly less secure connection, but potentially if you're using free tier, that's okay for your use case, just testing around, seeing what the product does. So we can kind of get started relatively quickly with free tier with that 20-second load time to get the cluster running compared to about 20 minutes, I think, on a dedicated cluster. Pretty big difference, so you don't have to provision all that hardware.
So I ended up having a typo in my verify full. So that's
that's what you get for trying to be secure.
Yeah, exactly. So just like the Python example, we've got some different accounts and we're transferring money back and forth. You can see the output shows shows that the steps here: getting the account balance, transferring funds, and getting the final account balance after the transfer. So basically, it's the same application could run locally, or by adding the right connection strings, you can connect to that free cluster I just created. So all of our Hello World apps are either updated or will be updated very soon to have instructions for using this with CockroachCloud pre-tier clusters, and hopefully you've also seen a little bit how the free tier connection is very similar to the dedicated tier for CockroachCloud too. So that's what I had to show. Don't make as many typo mistakes as I did.
No, that was great. Thank you so much, Ian, for the demo and for your time. And yeah, that was awesome. Hopefully that was helpful for people. And I saw a bunch of questions coming in. So if anyone has any more questions, just feel free to drop them in our community Slack. We have a very active community Slack, and we're always happy to answer them. So anything else that you guys want to say, Ian or Emily? Anything else you have?
No, I think just kind of highlighting, it doesn't have to take that long to get started. I think this webinar was like 2 different clusters getting connected with some additional talking, probably, in about 30 minutes to 45 minutes total. So it can really be quite simple if you don't, just watch your parameters and things like Ian kind of pointed out. It's very easy to make those mistakes. I certainly still make them all the time. And I think that's why it's helpful to have these kinds of like video demos, because you can basically get a sense of like the exact mistakes you're about to make, at least for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, just want to say thank you guys again for joining. Thank you, Tim, for answering all the questions in the chat. And we'll be sending out this as a recording afterwards. And also, I'll just send some follow-up links for more helpful learning resources. And then last thing, just when you close the webinar, you'll see a survey. So if you could just let us know what you thought, and if you have any feedback or any topics that you want us to cover in future office hours, we always love to hear from you. So thank you everyone for joining, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your days.